Trucker Dump, episode 151. Alright, we got something a bit different for the main topic today. I had the opportunity to test Garmin's newest truck GPS called the dezl OTR1000. I'll share my thoughts about that in a video. But first, lots of news to discuss, including truck recalls, winter driving prep, and COVID vaccines, waivers, and how it relates to workman's comp. Autonomous and electric vehicles are always a hot topic, including how electric trucks might attract new truck drivers to the industry. We've got an update on the closed bridge in Cincinnati. We'll learn about fancy pants smart trailers. Someone put in a request to be the new head of the FMCSA, and a DOT physical exemption for one large company. We've got a non-traditional Trucker Grub segment this time around, and in listener feedback we'll hear from Stevie, who drove for a carnival, and our musical guest, Driver Dave, will give us his origin story. And we'll top it all off with the annual reading of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, trucker style. This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by Pilot Flying J and Volvo Trucks.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com, resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey, Trucker Dumpers, how you doing out there? I hope this winter is treating you well so far, and I really hope you got home for Thanksgiving, and I hope you'll be getting home for Christmas too, because, that's a real bummer spending a big holiday like that on the road in truck stops. The evil overlord and I did that many, many years. We're convinced to stay out on the road, only to find out we're actually just going to be sitting at a truck stop all weekend. So much for all that freight they had to run. Well, we learned about that. Just quit doing that. Tried to go home as much as possible. But one of the things I actually love about my union LTL job is that not only do I get those days off guaranteed, I also get paid for it. So there's that. For those of you new to the show, my name is Todd McCann. I'm a 23-year trucker. I'm a really crappy, but I'm a dedicated Destiny player. And I'm the author of 2 trucking ebooks, How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job, and, get ready for this one, Trucking Life, an entertaining yet informative guide to becoming and being a truck driver. What an awful title. You can learn more at abouttruckdriving.com. Oh, and another thing you should know about me is, love me or hate me, I laugh at my own jokes a lot. Hey, you remember I mentioned in the last episode that the 50% off book special would be going off sale soon? Well, I have decided that's going to be the end of January. So I just figure, new year, people are going to be looking for the books for maybe a new career. Maybe they'll find the books. They'll have to the end of January to do that. So, hey, if you're interested, you better boot, scoot, and boogie on over there and get it before it's too late. Again, that is 50% off, so you can get both of those books for $9.99. What a bargain, as Eddie Murphy would say. But enough of that. I know you are not here for me to cram my books down your throat, and I know you're not here to find out how many times per second I die in the game Destiny. So, let's say we get on with the show. And of course, we always start out with today's hot topics and news. Tune in at 10. That is, seconds from now. Truck recalls, seems like every day. Yep, more truck recalls. Of course, got 2 of them this round. First up, Volvo. I found this article on overdriveonline.com. Apparently, about 8,400 of their V&L tractors, 2020 models, have window hinges. The mounting hardware is not quite strong enough, but only if you're driving down the road with the window open. Kind of weird. I've never quite understood why anybody would want to do this. If they're just windows hanging off the side of a cab, you're going 60, 70, however fast your truck will go, you're going down the road. If you're not in the bunk, why do you need that airbag there? If you are in the bunk, well, you're not moving, or your spouse is driving and you're getting blown around while you're trying to sleep. Never quite understood why people do this, but apparently drivers do it. So again, if you got a 2020 Volvo V&L, check out the link here in the show notes and go and get those window hinges replaced for free. All right, next up, well, I actually lied to you, I have to admit. I said there was only 2 recalls, but apparently there are 3 because in this article I found on overdriveonline.com, there are 2. This one affects more than 8,000 Freightliner and Western Star trucks. Now, you're going to have to check out the link in the show notes. There's a lot of different models here that are affected, and you'll need to go check this out. Oh, I guess I forgot to mention what a show note is, in case you're not familiar with the show. Show notes are links to all of the things I am talking about. You can find them in your podcast app. If you're listening on a podcast app, which I would recommend, you can usually swipe right or left or up or down or something when you're listening to the episode and see links. Also, sometimes if your podcast app supports it, you'll see like a little chapter header right down somewhere on the screen, usually below the Trucker Dump logo. And sometimes that is a link also, and you can just click on it and go straight to the link and read it yourself. Or if you would prefer, you could just go to abouttruckdriving.com and search for TD151. That's this episode, and all of the links will be right there at the bottom. Also, if you want to have these links right good and handy for you, you can always subscribe to the little thing I send out. It's basically just a little newsletter, not really a newsletter. I don't announce a lot of stuff. Just when a new episode comes out, I say what it's about. All the show notes basically are right in there, and I'll send those directly to your email box. And I don't use that email for pretty much anything else. And I'm certainly not going to sell it to anyone. So if you want to do any of that, you can go to abouttruckdriving.com. You can subscribe to that newsletter there. Just click on the subscribe button in the navigation. So anyway, back to the story. Like I said, 8,000 Freightliner and Western Star models. And the first of these issues is an internal component in the clutch assembly. It could fail, and that could cause the truck to move unexpectedly, something that no trucker ever wants to happen. So the second one it's a smaller recall, but it is still bad, of course, because all recalls are bad. Well, except for maybe a window hinge. I don't know if that's considered bad. Definitely not unsafe, but this one could be unsafe. Definitely. It says, okay, I'm not a mechanic, so let me just read this off here because it won't make much sense to me at all. In the affected trucks, the steer axle spindle nut snap ring locking feature. Wow, that's a mouthful. It may be incorrectly installed or missing from the left spindle nut at the spindle, which could result in a wheel end failure and potentially a wheel off separation incident. Something else no trucker ever wants to happen to them. So again, check out the link to these show notes, and there are phone numbers in here and recall numbers for all of this stuff. And with that, we're done with recalls. All right, next up, we got something for the owner-operators. Found this one on overdriveonline.com, link in the show notes. This one is called Clocks Ticking for Independents to Run Their Required Self-Check in Drug Clearinghouse. Now, I didn't know about this, so I assume maybe you didn't either. I do keep my eye on the news quite a bit, and if I hadn't heard about it, I thought, well, maybe other people haven't either. If you're an owner-operator, you may know about this already. Either way. So what is this? Oh, the CDL Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. We've been talking about this for a while. This is the national database of truck drivers who anytime you have to take a drug test for whatever reason, it goes in here, drug or alcohol test, I should say. It goes in here, and it makes it easy for employers to check up on who's a druggie, basically. So here's the thing, though, and I didn't know this. Owner-operators or a small fleet, if you own a small fleet, by January 5th, you have to actually go in and do your first annual check. Another thing I didn't know was that employers are required to check on employees at least once a year. And yes, this includes single owner operators. So basically, you have to run a check on yourself. Sounds really weird to me. I don't understand it, but then again, I'm not the FMCSA. Thank God for that. However, the article does say that if you are leased onto another carrier and you're operating under their authority, you do not have to do these checks. You do have to give them permission to check on you, though. I had to do this at my company recently. They just handed me a piece of paper. It said, hey, you give us permission to check the drug and alcohol clearinghouse. And I signed my name, yes, and that was it. Yeah, I'm sure that's what you're getting too. I am assuming none of us company drivers have a choice in the matter here. I guess you could always refuse to sign that piece of paper. I'm not sure what that would happen. Why don't you try it and let me know how that goes for you? No, don't do that. So anyway, at least folks know that you are exempt from checking on yourself now. The article does go on to say that according to their numbers, there are a lot of owner-operators and small fleets who have not registered at all for this, and apparently it is required. So make sure you get over there. Do this by January 5th because you're going to have to get registered. Again, the process only took me like 10 minutes to not that I'm an owner-operator, but just to sign up for it. It might take a bit longer if you are an actual employer. I'm not sure on that. But don't wait till January 5th to get this done. Head on over a little bit early. But you do need to get this done because there can be a $2,500 fine if you do not do not get this done. I don't know about you, but I don't have an extra $2,500 just laying around. Especially not that I want to hand to the government. So anyway, owner-operators, go and check out the link. There's more details in this article that I did not want to get into, but you will. Because, like I said, $2,500 is a lot of friggin' money. Link in the show notes. Hey, this next one is just a quick reminder that if you have not gotten your CDL updated or your hazmat, DOT physical, any of that stuff that had extensions in the past because of COVID, well, according to the FMCSA, those are coming to an end. Of course, they say this is not set in stone. Something weird happening with COVID could extend them out again, but for right now, they have no plans to extend it any further. Listen, I've been talking about this on the podcast for a long time, all these extensions. They've given you plenty of time to get it done. So if you don't have it done by now, it's your own stinking fault. But you got to get in there and do it before these deadlines run out. And most of these deadlines do run out at the end of the year. So in the words of Larry the Cable Guy, get her done. Link in the show notes to this overdriveonline.com article. Hey, speaking of your hazmat endorsement, let's run over to Transport Topics. That's ttnews.com. This one is called TSA PreCheck Bill May Have Applications for Trucking, the ATA says. So basically a U.S. Senate bill, it's meant to facilitate like online mobile access for the TSA, for like getting on planes and stuff like that. And you have to do a background check. There's a way to do a background check like ahead of time so you can be on the fast track to get on planes, things like that. Well, this program has actually been endorsed by the American Trucking Association. And what they're hoping here is that they can use this same process to make our hazmat stuff go by faster, or so we can get our hazmat licenses quicker and with not such a pain in the butt. Also for the TWIC card, which is, I didn't know this, it stands for Transportation Worker Identification Credential. Basically, it is the card that gets you onto our seaports and things like that. So anyway, I just thought this was interesting. This is just a bill that's been, introduced. So again, this was introduced by the U.S. Senate, so it also has to go through the House, and then it has to get approved by the president, whoever that may be at the time. Yes, I'm still in denial. All this voting thing, there's just too much weird about it. I'm not accepting it yet. Sorry, Democrats. That's just about as political as I'm going to get on the show, but just not accepting it till it actually happens. Anyway, before I lose half the listeners, let me move on. Hey, speaking of other things I hate, let's talk about COVID. Let's get over to a news source for me. I don't think I've ever used anything from this before. Trucknews.com. Article is called Truck Drivers Should Be Among First to Get COVID-19 Vaccine, says John Hopkins professor. This is basically an argument we all know and have heard because we believe it, and we are it. Apparently, the Canadian Trucking Alliance, that's the CTA, and the American Trucking Association, the ATA, are saying that we should get some of the first vaccines because we are very important like vital to the economy, which, as I said, we already know that. But as far as I know, nothing has been decided on this. The group that's responsible for deciding who gets it first said they were going to meet as soon as the final vaccines were out, and they were going to decide who gets it first. Of course, the healthcare workers would be some of the first to get it, but this article and other articles that I've read also say that the truck drivers need to be right up there with the rest of them, and of course, elderly people who are at risk. So anyway, I just thought this was kind of interesting. Even more interesting to me is, will you take it? It's a new vaccine. They pushed it through. They rushed it. I don't have a problem with vaccines. I take the flu vaccine every single year and usually don't end up with the flu, so it works. But that has been tested for years and years and years. Same with like the shingles vaccine or many other vaccines that we have out there. But I get a little nervous when it comes to pushing things through like this, especially for something that, now I know COVID's real, but, I am not at high risk. I'm not in the age group for that. I'm in fairly good health. So, I do have some people at my work who have had COVID and had to stay home for 2 weeks and things like that. And often they have no symptoms whatsoever. So it's a decision, isn't it? Do you take it? Because it's, you don't want to get it, and, you don't want to get COVID and you don't want to die from it. But at the same time, you don't want complications coming from a vaccine that you don't know anything about and hasn't been tested for very long. So, hey, this is your choice. Obviously, I am undecided at this point. Haven't decided, not going to give my opinion, probably even if I do decide to get it or I don't decide to get it. Whatever I decide, I am probably not going to tell you which one I do. Because, hey, that's a personal decision. Anyway, enough of that. Check out the link in the show notes to trucknews.com for that one. So here's some good news for a change of pace. The Brent Spence Street Bridge? Yeah, I didn't know that either. We all know it as the bottleneck bridge on I-75, I-71 between Kentucky and Ohio in Cincinnati. Yeah, that's the one. Well, if you remember right, this was damaged in a truck collision and a fire a few weeks ago, and they're saying that this bridge should be back open by December 23rd. So that is really good news. If you've ever had to go around Cincinnati, well, it's not fun. It's not one of those loops that is just really short. It's quite a ways out there. Take a look at the map. You'll see what I mean. So anyway, that's all I had on that. Just letting you know that this was going to be opened back up on December 23rd. This is courtesy of overdriveonline.com. So if it doesn't open by then, blame them, not me. All right. Do you remember in the last couple of episodes, can't remember which one it was, I was talking about the Waymo company and their driverless cars that were going to be operating in Phoenix. And I was wondering how that was going to work. They were going to give free rides to people, anybody willing to do it. And I was just curious to know how that went, according to, whether there were a lot of crashes or if just people didn't trust the system. Well, they have an article here on transport topics. That's ttnews.com. Waymo looks to calm doubts about driverless cars with data release. Apparently just a month after they did this test, they put out a big report on this to try to, ease public fears on this stuff. It says they have 6.1 million miles of automated driving since in 2019 and 2020, including 65,000 miles without a safety driver at the wheel. They say the total mileage represents more than 500 years behind the wheel for the average U.S. driver. So anyway, they released this 30-page document with lots of stats in it and stuff. It goes through just a little bit of the stats here. Here's some of the important ones. They reported 18 contact events, that's in quotes, contact events, involving its fleet over the span of the safety report. Only one of which involved a fully driverless vehicle. And in an additional 29 instances, it was concluded that there would have been a collision if a safety driver hadn't intervened. Now, this must have been before that actual test down in Phoenix, because they were saying that these incidents were being monitored by simulators, whatever that means. So anyway, it says all 47 incidents involved errors or rules violations by other road users. And none of these events were severe enough to likely to have caused critical injuries, although airbags were deployed on 3 occasions. They go on to say that according to all their simulations and all their testing, that right now safety drivers still perform better than robots at anticipating danger and preventing collisions. Well, gee, that one doesn't surprise any of us, does it? That's what we've been saying all along. Yeah, I realize it's a hard thing for a computer to anticipate something. They're really good at reacting once something is happening. But, you know, really a lot of driving is just anticipating what's going to happen. I mean, how many times have you been driving along and you just all of a sudden look down and you think, that car's going to come in my lane. I know he is. And he does. You just had this feeling it's going to happen, and it does. And there's just no way for a computer to do that. Now, one thing important to remember, too, here is that this is not traditional driving that they did this testing in. All of this 6.1 million miles were logged in suburban Phoenix roads with speed limits of 45 miles per hour or less. So that does change the game quite a bit. Right there, you take a lot of the critical injury aspect out of it. You know, if you're traveling at 35 on a rural street somewhere, you know, and you have a fender bender, you're not likely to have major injury. So there is that to kind of, you know, figure into the equation if you want to put it that way. But as I've said before on this podcast, I think the worst problem we have with automated vehicles in general is just public perception. And this article does confirm that. It says there was a poll taken earlier this year by a group called Partners for Automated Vehicle Education, and it said nearly half of respondents said they would never get into a self-driving taxi. I don't blame them. Now, personally, I know Shannon Holden lives out there in a Phoenix area, and I think he should have taken one for the team and gone and tried this out for us. But no, nothing like that. Gosh, Shannon, I'm so disappointed. Anyway, I just thought this was a very interesting article since we had just talked about this subject, and I was saying, man, it'd be nice to get some information on this. And just a month later, after that program was over, they did, well, I don't know if it's over completely, but it is, we got some information out of it, and that was pretty cool. Now, this company, Waymo, it's owned by, not that it's all that important, but it's owned by Alphabet, which also owns Google. It's a spinoff of Google. It's their parent company. So, I don't know if Google's known to be all that open about everything, but in this case they were. So good on them. So anyway, nothing of significant importance there. Just thought it was interesting to cover again. Check out the link and all of the details on all of the stats and stuff like that at Transport Topics. That's ttnews.com. Speaking of autonomous vehicles and driver assist vehicles, guess who's behind it? Yep, it's our good friends, the FMCSA. And there's an article about it to prove it in thetruckersreport.com. It's called How Can We Roll Out Driverless Trucks as Quickly as Possible? Wonders the FMCSA out loud. Well, they're going to do something about this. Apparently, they have formed a group called the Trucking Fleet Concept of Operations. They're calling it CONOPS. And it's basically a way to push the driverless and autonomous stuff forward. They're trying to, like we just spoke about, raise awareness and try to get this push forward. As they say, the delayed achievement of safety, productivity, and efficiency benefits of ADS-equipped trucks. Okay, so how they're going to plan on doing this is they're going to 4 trucking industry conferences, and they are going to be collecting data from 2,000 people in the industry, including drivers, fleet managers, state and federal personnel, industry engineers, all kinds of people related to the trucking industry. And they're going to get a baseline on what the opinion is of these ADS technology. That's the automated, don't even remember what that stands for, automated driver assist or something like that. Anyway, after they take this baseline survey, they are going to be providing a hands-on demonstration. And after that, they're going to have people fill out a second questionnaire to see if their opinions have changed. Supposedly, the whole experience is supposed to take less than 5 minutes. Well, I don't know where I'm going to see this because I'm not going to be at any of these conferences. But if I ever do get an opportunity to do something like this, I will definitely participate. Nothing really to report there except for it's happening. The FMCSA is pushing this, trying to get, public perception up where they can push it faster and faster and get there sooner. And again, you can check out this article on thetruckersreport.com. They're not truckersreport.com. Like Ohio State, they are thetruckersreport.com. All right, for this next story, you had better hang on to your seat and put on some rubber shoes because it is so shocking you would just get electrocuted to death. Okay, this one is over on overdriveonline.com. Study: automated driving techs shown to increase dangerous driver engagement. Okay, let me read this first paragraph for you. A 4-week field trial conducted recently and released in November by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety revealed common lapses in attention associated with driver assist technologies that tend to compound in individual drivers the longer they drive with assist technologies active. Who would have known that? I mean, if a car or a truck is going to let you take your eyes off the road and not pay attention to lane position or anything like that, what did they think was going to happen? Are you just going to blindly stare out into the road and, pay attention? Is your attention going to be completely on the road 100% of the time? No, it's not. Even these systems like Tesla that have a feature where you have to put your hand on the wheel, every few seconds in order to keep the thing active. I don't know about you, but I can put my hand on my wheel, and if I so desired, I could look away from, I could look away for hours if I wanted to and leave my hand on the wheel. My hand is pretty much glued to the wheel after 23 years of driving. It's just used to being in that position. But anyway, this test was done over 4 weeks. Like it said, they had 20 volunteers driving high-end cars like Volvos and Range Rovers. Basically, it just says that the longer they used these driver assist features, the more they relied on them and the more they took their attention off the road. Like I said, duh, what a shocker. And this wasn't over just the course of like the entire 4 weeks. This was over the course of a day. Like if you're driving for 4 hours, you'll get more complacent towards the end of that time than you will the beginning, which makes sense. In the beginning, you're a bit more alert, you're a bit more conscious. And then as things are running smoothly and you're staying in your lane, you just kind of say, truck's got this, or the car's got this. I'll just go check Twitter. Oh boy. This doesn't come as any surprise to me, but it just goes to show the FMCSA is really pushing, trying to get this stuff done, and it's just that I just don't think humans are ready for it. I just don't. So again, as a truck driver, don't be panicking about these autonomous trucks. They will take some jobs, no doubt, some of the easy stuff they can do on big interstates and things like that. But, there's still going to be a lot of use for truck drivers out here for the foreseeable future. At least that's the way I see it. Of course, if I could see the future, I'd be a millionaire and I wouldn't be doing this podcast right now. Certainly wouldn't be driving a truck. All right, let's move on. Hey, these next two articles have absolutely nothing to do with trucking except for the fact that we're talking about electric vehicles. These are about cars. I found both these articles on Transport Topics. That's ttnews.com. Check out the link in the show notes for these. The first one is called Cars on Hyundai's Electric Platform Can Charge 80% in 18 Minutes. Hey, we all know there's a big push for electric vehicles. Honestly, I'm not fighting these as much as I am the autonomous stuff. But they Hyundai claims they're going to be selling 1 million cars by 2025 will be electric. And they plan to have 23 electric vehicles on that platform. Wow. But here's the thing, like the headline said, they now have quick charging options. We've had this on our phone for a long time. You know, how you plug it in, certain chargers will charge it really fast and other chargers will just make it a nice slow one. So, if you need that quick charge really, really fast, for instance, they say, you can get as much as 62 extra miles in just 5 minutes of charging. And the top range of their electric vehicles right now is 310 miles. Now, of course, trucks use much, much, much bigger batteries. That's why this fast charging is so important, because, you don't want trucks sitting in a fuel bay, or, well, I guess it won't be a fuel bay. It'll be called an electric bay at that point. But you can't have them sitting there for 2 hours on end. As much as some a-hole drivers would love that, they'd be able to take a 2-hour break in the bay. They're already kind of doing that, aren't they? Thank God. Thank God that, that 30-minute break doesn't apply as much as it used to. Anyway, let me get back to the topic here. Again, this is Hyundai, and one company name kept popping up in both of these articles, and it was LG Chem. Chem as in chemical. They are the ones responsible for providing these batteries. And this second article talks about that. It's called GM New Batteries Cut Electric Car Costs and Increase Range. Now, if you've ever gone and priced an electric vehicle, you know they are super, super expensive. I think the cheap Tesla is about 40 grand. This article says most every electric vehicle costs more than $30,000. And they're saying with this new battery technology, they're going to bring down the cost so much that it will be comparable to an internal combustion engine vehicle, which that would be breakthrough. Because quite honestly, right now, that is the biggest hurdle for people to overcome, is that big upfront cost. I think a lot of people, I'd be one of them, would love not to have to pay for gas and would love the extra torque and the speed that an electric vehicle would give you and how quiet it is. That'd be awesome. But who can afford that? Well, apparently everyone before too long. GM in particular has pledged to roll out 30 battery-powered models by 2025. So 2025 seems to be the big year here. So we're going to see more and more electric vehicles out here on the road by 2025. Now, like I said, GM is using this battery pack from LG Chem, and if you're into physics at all, pay attention. This chemistry will involve lithium metal anodes. I don't know what that means, but apparently it's really good. And it can lower costs of the batteries by about 60%, it says. So this is just a very interesting way we're going. Of course, like I've said a million bajillion cajillion times, where do they think this electric is going to come from? Coal burning plants, probably. Oh, well, it is what it is. That's all I had on that. Just wanted to comment on it because it looks like there's new battery technology coming around the corner. It's not quite here yet, but lots of people have said for years and years that physics just won't let us do anything more with batteries. Well, apparently they figured something out. So here we go with that. Boy, oh boy, this next story is an interesting take on electric vehicles. I've never seen this one before. Found it on Transport Topics. That's ttnews.com. All right, here we go. Electric trucks have qualities to improve diversity, panelists say. What? Here's the thing. They are saying that electric trucks may be attractive to young people, stating that 80% of millennials and Generation Z want government agencies and businesses to make greater efforts to care for the environment. So basically what they're saying in this article is that if a company wants to attract new drivers, which we all know has been a problem in this industry, is getting newer drivers interested in trucking. Of course, a lot of the old timers would say, we don't need newer drivers because they all suck. Well, it is what it is. We got to have truck drivers in the future, right? And they're going to be from the younger group. Just suck it up, deal with it. We got to deal with it. Anyway, the idea here being that, if a company wants to attract new drivers, get more electric trucks because they'll see that company as being more eco-friendly and all that jazz. Don't know if it's going to work. Don't know if this is actually real, but this is just what some people in the industry are saying. Maybe it's just grasping at straws because they've given up on doing what they really need to do to keep drivers and attract drivers, and that's pay more and offer better conditions and more home time and things like that. Maybe they ought to concentrate on what's real and attainable than, relying on a future technology that isn't quite here yet. Anyway, I just wanted to touch on that because it was such a unique spin. It is a very unique article and it's very short. So go and check this one out. Link in the show notes. I don't have to tell you how rough it still is out here right now, right? Well, Pilot Flying J wants to thank you for keeping everything running smoothly. And they're doing that by offering you more rewards and more points. You know what I'm talking about. It's called Push for Points, and it can get you up to 4 points per gallon faster while you're racking up those hard-earned miles. Yep, you can reach 4 points per gallon after only 6 qualifying fills. Now, you want to take advantage of Push for Points as soon as possible because it's only available for a limited time, and it's only available in the free Pilot Flying J app. Just go to the App Store in your phone and search for Pilot Flying J. Or for direct links to both of those apps, head over to pilotflyingj.com/app. Listen, it's super easy. Here's how this works. First, you just need to download the app, and when you open it up, it's immediately going to ask if you want to activate Push for Points. And of course, you do, right? It'll do that at the beginning of each month from here on out. Next up, slap at least 75 gallons of fuel in. Then just sit back and watch your point balance grow. And grow they will because your points per gallon will increase after each qualifying fill. That means you're going to be earning 2 points per gallon after 2 qualifying fills. After 3 fills, you'll get 2.5 points. 4 fills get you 3 points. 5 fills get you 3.5 points. And finally, after your 6th qualifying fill of 75 gallons, you'll be earning 4 points per gallon for the rest of the month. Cha-ching! All right, you've got all these points. Now what? Well, that's the fun part, spinning them. Your rig isn't the only thing that needs a fill up, right? When you get hungry or you need something to drink, you can redeem your points for in-store savings on the essentials, as well as merchandise for you and your rig. And when you need to pull in to finally get that sleep you need, you can redeem points for a reserved parking spot, and you can even use it for Wi-Fi credits at participating Pilot and Flying J locations. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You can really spend these points on just about anything in the store, really. So again, from Pilot Flying J, they want to thank you for all you do. And a big reminder to stay safe out there on the road. Of course, terms and conditions do apply to Push for Points, so be sure to check out pilotflyingj.com/app for details. That's pilotflyingj.com/app.
Hear me and obey my command. Download the Pilot Flying J app now.
Thanks to Pilot Flying J for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. And for tolerating my cheesiness. Okie dokie, for this next article, you are going to want to stick around to the end where we discuss something that I read in here and was like, uh-oh. All right. This article is, again, on Transport Topics, ttnews.com, link in the show notes. It's called eSmart Targets Better Tractor-Trailer Connectivity. Now, eSmart is a company that they supply trucking technology. They offer stuff like adaptive speed control and load-based power management, stuff like that. Just ways to make your truck and your trailer smarter. Now, what their goal is to actually tie the truck and the trailer together so they actually are communicating back and forth. So, for instance, if it has sensors on the trailers, so it can measure the suspension and know how much, like it can monitor the air gauge and know how much weight is in the vehicle itself, and then that vehicle, say a truck equipped with the same eSmart technology, would back underneath that, and the fifth wheel would register that, hey, I'm now connected to a truck and it sends a signal and goes, it's this trailer number. And so now the truck automatically knows what trailer it's pulling and it knows whether it's loaded or empty. Sounds all kind of cool, right? I mean, they're even saying drivers could get on this because they're planning on using like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, and you could be able to connect to your trucks and your trailer, like on a tablet or something like that, which, you know, hopefully the company would pay for. Probably won't. So anyway, I just thought this was an interesting concept. I mean, it would be cool if some of that stuff actually worked, but here's the scary part. When they can control things like that, they can control all sorts of other things. Here's the second paragraph in this article. It says, eSmart's advanced driver assistance system uses GPS to actively cap a truck's maximum speed based on posted speed limits and the fleet's own preset operating parameters. This intelligent speed management software employs a patented process to control the voltage from the accelerator pedal to the engine control module. The eSmart CEO is quoted as saying, "If you control that voltage, it's really like you're controlling the foot of the driver." Ugh. I'm just sitting here with my head in my hands, just wondering where our industry is going. You know, I'm testing this this Garmin GPS that I'm going to tell you about here in a little bit. And one of the features it has on it is it actually knows what the speed limit is based on the map and the GPS. And if it knows that, what this eSmart is saying is, hey, we know it's 50 miles an hour. We can limit that accelerator pedal to 55 miles an hour. Can you imagine trying to get around somebody that's just a little bit slower than you or something like that, and everybody is capped at 55 mile an hour in a 55 zone, or everybody's capped at 65 in a 65 zone? This sounds like a complete freaking traffic nightmare to me. I hope this never happens. I don't wish bad on anybody, but please, eSmart, don't do this. And if you do, please do it like, you know, some of the companies out there where they'll give you just a mile or two extra if you put your foot in it for brief amounts of time. Please, just don't make us go all the same speed limit. It will be a never-ending line of boringness. Just don't do that to us, please. Oh, dear God, help us. If you want to read about this debacle, head on over to Transport Topics, ttnews.com. Ugh. Why does it taste like I just ate a big pile of dog poo? All right, this next one sure raised an eyebrow for me. Found it on truckersreport.com. Pardon me, thetruckersreport.com. Shame on me. All right, let me just read the first paragraph of this article. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or FMCSA, has announced that they're granting a regulatory exemption requested by Knight Swift. The carrier will no longer need to confirm that new drivers have passed a federally mandated medical exam to ensure they're fit to drive. In the words of Scooby-Doo, what the heck? All right, let's go on to understand this. It goes on to say that Knight and Swift, they're both basically the same company now, and they hire a lot of drivers. We all know that because just a lot of newbies they take on, they train them and everything. We've all heard the Swift jokes, right? So anyway, they are saying that they require their own medical long form for pre-hire screening. And I'm assuming that this meets the standards that is set forth by the FMCSA, because it does say as long as they stick within those guidelines and continue on the same program they have now, that they will be permitted to not, have their drivers go get an actual DOT physical in the beginning. Now, it does say every year after that, or if you're every 2 years, whatever it is for your case, they will still require you to go get an official DOT exam. It's just that they hire so many new drivers and they put, so many people through their DOT tests, and usually the company will pay for that. So it's gonna really, take a load off their, off their wallets there. So It's interesting they've done this just for Knight Swift. I wonder how many other companies are going to come in and say, hey, well, we do the same thing. But for now, it's just Knight and Swift who is exempt from this. It says this exemption will go into effect this year, December 4th, so just about a week ago, and it'll expire on November 4th of 2025. I guess they'll see how it's gone by then. Just very interesting, raised my eyebrow and gave me a Scooby-Doo moment. Okie dokie, I have some mixed feelings about this one, just a little confused. I don't know what to think about it. Anyway, it is from fleetowner.com, link in the show notes, and it is called OOIDA Leader Wants to Head Up Biden's FMCSA. Now, as we all know, OOIDA's leader, president, and CEO is Todd Spencer. He seems like a really cool guy. Seems like he knows what he's doing. He's had his CDL since 1974, and he started working for OOIDA, it looks like, in 1981. He's been around forever and knows the industry very well. So apparently he put his name in the bucket for Joe Biden's to be his FMCSA director. And, in general, he's got a lot of great ideas. I have had some issues with those in the past because, as I've said on this podcast, you have to remember that right now, Todd Spencer works for owner-operators. Yes, I'm sure he's for truckers everywhere, but the thing he fights for right now is owner-operators. Now, is that going to change when he gets to Washington? I don't know. Because, a lot of times what is good for owner-operators is also good for company drivers, but sometimes it's not. Like remember that one case where he was saying that small fleet owners should not have to run e-logs, but everyone else should? I don't know. I'm confused by that. It made no sense to me because in my experience, the smaller companies are usually the ones with all the outlaws that are breaking the rules anyway. But he said, let's let them be exempt because it was going to cost too much. I don't know. I didn't agree with that at all. And there's other things I don't agree with him about. But there are lots of things that I do agree with him about. For instance, in his letter to Biden, he wrote, "My message to Congress in recent years has been that trucking is dysfunctional." And it is, in a way. He goes on and says, "Some of this dysfunction is a result of trucking regulations that have nothing to do with highway safety, many of which are mandated by Congress. They are often promoted by people who have little or no industry experience and/or by people who have no real understanding of the actual impact these regulations have on big trucks and those who operate them." Well, that's certainly true. I'll give him that. And as a representative, Louis Pugh, I think is the way you pronounce his name. Sounds like a cartoon character, doesn't it? Louis Le Pugh. There's no law in there, though. Just Louis Pugh. He's an executive vice president for OOIDA. He told the Senate subcommittee on transportation safety that Congress has been a big part of the dysfunction that Spencer sees in the trucking industry. He's quoted saying, "Washington has allowed trucking policy to be overly influenced by executives looking to maximize profits, activists who'd like to regulate truckers to oblivion, state and local governments who view truckers as rolling piggy banks, and self-proclaimed experts who don't even know what the inside of a truck looks like." Well, again, all good points. In the past, OOIDA and Mr. Spencer have tried to repeal the electronic logs, and they've tried to get rid of the overtime exemption for drivers in the Fair Labor Standards Act that we've spoken about here. They also pushed for more truck parking. They wanted to abandon proposals for requiring speed limiters, which I agree with. For mandating front and side underride guards, I see no point in those either. Raising insurance minimums is another one they are trying to fight, and I agree with that. There's no sense in doing that either. But then they also don't think anyone under 21 years of age should be driving in interstate commerce. And again, like we've spoken before, I don't get that one because if an 18-year-old can drive in a city, like in Chicago or something, what's the difference if they cross into Gary, Indiana? It's all city, right? You're trusting them in your downtown areas, but not on the open road. Makes no freaking sense to me, but for some reason, Mr. Spencer thinks it does. If he can explain that to me, I'd love to have him on the show and talk to him about this. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Mr. Spencer is pretty great for this industry. Most of what he says is spot on. But again, I just have a problem with this whole conflict between owner-operators And he really doesn't like those big fleets because he sees that as an unfair advantage to an owner-operator. Maybe in certain aspects it is, because maybe the big fleets can pay more or something like that. But there are, things that are really great about small companies, these small carriers, because, not everybody wants to work for a mega carrier. As a matter of fact, lots of people don't want to work for mega carriers. That's why there's more owner-operators out there than there are fleet drivers. So anyway, I'm just be interested to hear what you think about this. Do you think Mr. Spencer would make a good director for the FMCSA or not? What's your thoughts on that? I'm sure all of you owner operators are going to say, yes, please. But I can tell you right now, there's certain things that are never going to get rid of. He could fight to get rid of electronic logs all he wants, but he's never going to get rid of those. I don't care if he's the director or not. He's never going to get Congress to go along with that. So anyway, just lots of things here I'm just so confused about. I'd love to hear your input on this. Please send me a feedback. truckerdump@gmail.com is the email address you'd use. If you got an audio comment for this, it'd be great. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. Enough about that. Winter is upon us. I know some of you have probably been running in snow already. I have been lucky to escape it so far. We got a little bit of snow here at the house yesterday, but it didn't stick anywhere. Fine by me. Love to see it coming down. I love to see it on the ground, but I just don't like to see all of the slick roads out there, especially if I'm driving a truck at the time. So here's an article on overdriveonline.com, link in the show notes, called Do Thorough Winter Prep and Avoid Downtime. Boy, ain't that the truth. So here's a few things you should be looking at. First, your air system and your brakes. Make sure your brakes and any moving part on your truck is lubed. It's, if you can go in this time of year and get a lube job, that's great. Do that, we should do that quite often anyway. But the air system is very important too, because that can lock up your brakes. So make sure you're draining those air tanks every single day. Now, these air condensers, what are they called? Air dryers. That's them. There goes my mechanical prowess again. Those air dryers, they have that little, that little valve on them. When they get enough moisture in it, they go psh, and they spit it out. Well, as long as that's working, everything's usually pretty good. You'll go to drain those tanks and no moisture will come out. But if that thing is malfunctioning or it gets gummed up somehow with salt and grime and stuff, you're going to have some water in those air tanks. So get in the habit of just draining those tanks more often, daily, daily at the minimum. I have to admit, this is one part where I fall down in my pre-trip inspection. I often forget to do that. Next up is battery and electrical. Just make sure all of your battery cables look good. There's no cuts or weirdness in them. And make sure your battery is fully charged, because a battery that is slightly charged, according to this, if it's not fully charged, it can freeze at about 30 degrees. And, well, you don't want that. Next up is your belts. Now, apparently belts, you can't really tell from the modern ones what they're actually, if they're actually in bad condition. Now, the ones on my truck, they look all kinds of rusty and funky. They're kind of brownish. And I'm thinking, man, I hope one of those doesn't bust this winter, but I also know my company, and I know they're not going to replace it until it busts. So I may write it up, but I don't see any chance of it getting replaced until it busts. I'll be sitting on the side of a road somewhere. Why pay for a cheap belt when you can pay for $1,000 tow job somewhere, right? Brilliance at its best. Anyway, they're saying these belts can be checked with a special kind of a tool, which I didn't know about. There's some kind of a gauge that you can use on them. Interesting. And it also says you should be sure to check the belt tensioners and the pulleys while you're at it. What about coolant? Yep. Make sure you got plenty of coolant. Make sure it's topped off. Make sure you put one of those little floaty ball testers in it, and make sure it's at the right level, pH level or whatever it is. I can't remember what they call it, but it'll say whether the coolant is good enough or not. Also, of course, check for all your hoses. Make sure nothing's leaking, because the last thing you want is your truck to overheat, because just because the truck is overheated does not mean you will be overheated in the winter. You'll be sitting in a truck that's sitting on the side of the road freezing your bajingas off. All right. Oh, and one thing to keep in mind is, and I just learned this recently and was reminded in this article, that not all antifreezes are the same. Who knew? I just figured the green stuff, the red stuff, whatever. Apparently those things are not compatible. They've got orange stuff too, and I don't know what's mixable and what isn't. So just be careful with that. If you got red in there, put red in there. If you got green in there, put more green in there to top it off. Just be safe about that. Of course, your windshield is very important to you, right? So make sure that your windshield washer fluid is working, that you can squirt it and everything. Make sure you're using stuff that is rated at a temperature that won't freeze. That's very important. Some people have, suggested like using a little bit of rubbing alcohol in there. I'm not sure about that. I think I'd just rather buy the stuff that, is set for minus 30 degrees and go with that. Of course, the fuel system is very important, so you want to make sure you keep some anti-gel on handy, some of that 911 rescue stuff in case you're too late and it does gel up on you. But just make sure your fuel and your water separator, make sure you check that daily and nothing's gumming up or you don't have condensation or anything weird like that. Again, that truck ain't running if the fuel system is gummed up, and you're going to freeze to death. And of course, don't forget about your tires. I had a drive tire recently that I looked, and the tread was just a little bit lower than I'd like for it to be going into the winter. And I wrote it up, on my inspection sheet and said, check the low tread. I've found that a lot of times if you say check low tread on tire, they will replace it. But if you say low tread on tire needs to be replaced, they won't do it. It's like telling a 5-year-old to do something they don't want to do it just because you told them to do it. So anyway, just a tip there. It works for me. Anyway, I did get that tire replaced, so that's good. So check and make sure that the tread's good on all of them. Nothing, no recaps coming off or anything like that weird. Also, make sure when it comes to tires that if you're going into states that require tire chains, make sure you have enough of them. I mean, if you're going to bother to have chains on there at all, make sure you're not one chain short and you get shut down for something like that. That'd just be stupid. And of course, there are all the emergency road items that you want to take with you. Of course, it's always good to have a first aid kit handy, an extra blanket or something like that, extra clothes, road flares, a fire extinguisher, which you should have anyway, in your truck. That's DOT rules right there. And of course, you need extra food and stuff like that, extra water. Make sure your clothes are, have boots if you're going to be out in the weather a lot, things like that. Extra flashlight, batteries, a beanie cap. It might even be handy to have an extra cell phone charger or an extra battery along with you. And one thing I had not thought about was bring extra prescription medicine if you can, because, hey, you don't want to run out of that. Although I honestly don't know why, a one-day breakdown would cause you to, at that point, if you don't have enough medicine to make it that one extra day, you were screwed anyway. Although I guess it could be the last day before you were going home to restock. But, hey, if you're on meds, don't cut it that close. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, for all the details on this, there's more information that I didn't give you here, but I covered the highlights of it. Go and check out overdriveonline.com or the links in the show notes. Hey, you know how much I like these trucking law articles from overdriveonline.com, right? Well, here's a really good one. This one is called, Can You Refuse to Drive in Poor Weather? This is a very important article because, as we all know and have probably experienced from talking to other drivers, that sometimes dispatch has a tendency to push you to drive when you shouldn't be driving. And of course, the question is always, should you or shouldn't you? Now, of course, if you're a more experienced driver, you have more of a grasp on this. You're more willing to say, no, I'm just not driving in this. But if you are a newbie, in my experience, I've talked to plenty of them and heard from some of them in email through the podcast here that they're just not sure about when they're supposed to shut down and when they are not. So this article But I tell you what, this is a really good one. It's from Paul O. Taylor. He's from the Truckers Justice Center, and I will give his details at the end of the segment there. This one, boy, I just wish I could read every word because it's really short, it's really concise, and every bit of it is really good. I would highly suggest going over and checking this one out. Unfortunately, I don't really know the law myself, and I'm afraid if I just read this article word for word that I will be under some kind of copyright infringement or something like that, so I don't want to do that. I'll just paraphrase it. So anyway, Paul says as a lawyer, he gets this question asked all the time: do I have the right to refuse to drive in dangerous road conditions? And he says, according to the Employee Protection Provision of the Surface Transportation Assistance Act, you have the right to refuse to operate a commercial vehicle if it would be unsafe to drive. And the U.S. Department of Transportation regulations state that, quote, if conditions become sufficiently dangerous, the operation of the commercial motor vehicle shall be discontinued and shall not be resumed until it's safe to drive. Close quote. Okay, that seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, it's not, because who determines whether it's dangerous to drive or not? And how do you prove that you're in bad weather and stuff like that? And also, it's important to know that you cannot refuse a load or refuse driving when something is not actually happening at the time. You can always look at the forecast and stuff like that and see that maybe something is pending. It's going to be on you right away, and you can try to plead your case that way. But if it's not doing anything at the moment, you can't really refuse that load. But hey, you can warn them and say, hey, there's some bad weather coming up. I'll take the load, but I may be sitting. Just be prepared for it. So that's important to note. But there are certain scenarios that might affect the situation here. For instance, are you driving in mountains or like a steep grade or something like that? Because if you're doing that, well, naturally, you're not going to be willing to tolerate pretty much any bad weather. Now, are you seeing other drivers cruise down the road? I mean, could your company check on other drivers that they're, that work for their company, your co-drivers, and they're out there on the road traveling? Now, I think that one is a little sketchy, because one thing this article actually didn't say that I think it should have said, it takes lots of considerations, like what kind of freight you're hauling. Is it tanker? Because that's going to be a little bit more squirrely and everything, things like that. But one thing they did not consider was the experience of the driver. I mean, if you've got one driver with, say, 30 years of experience and they're really comfortable with driving in snow and, they can handle some ice too, and patchy ice, that's one thing. You get another driver who's had 6 months of experience or even a year, and this is their first winter, first bad snow or whatever. They are going to be far less comfortable on that. And in my opinion, if the driver isn't comfortable at the time, they are not safe. They need to be comfortable with the speed they're going and the conditions they're driving in, or else they are not safe to anyone on the road. So take that into consideration. Now, again, like I said, I've talked to plenty of new drivers out here who are intimidated by their fellow drivers. They're saying, oh, don't be a wimp, drive, or dispatchers trying to talk them into driving, which honestly is freaking stupid to me, because as a dispatcher, why would you want a driver with 6 months or years of experience to try to drive in unsafe conditions that they don't want to drive in? That makes no sense whatsoever to me. I mean, what's more vital, getting that load there intact and a little bit late, or having a truck and trailer turned over in the ditch somewhere? Makes no sense to me. But anyway, new drivers do get intimidated by this, and they often push harder than they should. So if you're a newbie out there listening right now, do not be pushed. I've said this countless times. I put it in my book, Trucking Life. It's just, don't do it. It's not worth it. I'm not saying shut down the first sign of a snowflake, because that ain't going to cut it. But once some stuff builds up on the road, drive in it for a little bit, get some experience, but don't push it too hard. Don't go too fast. And then eventually over time, you'll build up and you'll be able to understand what the truck is more capable of doing. Okay, now that I've said that, let's get one thing perfectly clear. If you are driving slow in the snow, or, whether you're new or you're an experienced driver who's just taking it easy, get out of the dang fast lane, okay? This is an update, honestly, since I said earlier that I haven't driven in the snow this year, and I did just drive in the snow yesterday, and it was pretty bad, and there were a lot of slow vehicles out in the left lane. Get out of the left lane. If you're going slow, right lane. That's a good rule of thumb for even perfect weather. So please, just get out of the left lane. Just get out. Oh, and one more thing. Enough with the flashers, okay? Now listen, if you come up on stop traffic somewhere and you want to make sure somebody sees you, as you're slowing down, by all means, turn your flashers on. But once you start getting some other cars and trucks behind you, turn them off. And honestly, there's no sense in running with your flashers on in bad weather. This counts for snow, ice, even rain. Rain might actually be the worst. Now, there might be a use for flashers in the fog, like a heavy, heavy fog. Not a light fog, but a heavy, heavy fog. But in general, it just makes no sense. All it does is blind everyone around you. It's not good for anyone. So knock it off, please. Use your flashers sparingly. There's no need to run with them on for 2 freaking hours going down the road. Especially if you're in the left lane. Get out of the left lane. Okay, let's get back to our regularly scheduled program. So, basically, I'm just going to go on with this. The article says, how do I go about refusing to drive in bad weather? Well, Paul says the really important thing to do here is document everything. So if you have like a Qualcomm, like an in-cab satellite system, or you communicate through email or text or anything like that, always put it in writing if you can. And if you've got a smartphone, take a snapshot of those messages that you're sending and the ones that you receive back from them. Because if you get fired for any reason for refusing to drive in bad weather or something like that, you're going to need as much documentation as possible. Take a picture of the view outside your windshield, things like that. Another thing to consider, and I've honestly never thought of this, so it was great it was in this article, is that if you have the weather pulled up and, in your current location on your phone, take a snapshot of that. Show what the forecast is. Show that it's freezing temperatures and there's, snow coming down or icy conditions or whatever. If you got an extended forecast, saying that, hey, it's going to happen, later today or something like that, that would be a good thing to just take screenshots and keep everything documented. That's the most important thing, because it says here that if you get fired for this, you have up to 180 days to fight this. You have to put a claim in with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration within 180 days. And of course, you're probably best off getting a lawyer under these circumstances too, if you want that job back. Honestly, if it were me, if somebody did this and I got fired over something like that, I don't know as I would fight it. I would just find a different company. Because if they're wanting to push you when you're uncomfortable, I don't want to work for them. That's just me. I mean, there's lots of companies out here to drive for, right? I mean, whoever you're driving for is not the only company in the world. Trust me on that one. And just because you refuse to drive in bad weather, I don't think that makes you look bad to a future employer. I think that just makes you look like a safe driver, that you're willing to stand up and say, no, these conditions are bad. I'm not driving. So anyway, that's the gist of this article. Just know that you do have the right to refuse to drive in bad weather on a legal basis. Now, I said I'd give you Paul's information, and he's put it in here, so if you have any questions, contact him. You got a pen? Here we go. His number is 855-943-3518. That's 855-943-3518. Every time I do that, I feel like I'm an announcer for a infomercial. Or his website is truckersjusticecenter.com. And of course, there'll be a link in the show notes to this article and his information. Hey, here's a riddle for you. What's better than a trucking law article from overdriveonline.com? 2 trucking law articles. All right, this last story is an interesting one considering the situation we're in nowadays. Found this on overdriveonline.com. It's one of their excellent trucking law articles called Does Workers' Comp Cover COVID-19 Infections? This one is written by Brad Klepper. He has a law firm called Interstate Trucker. He's also president of the law firm Drivers Legal Plan. You've probably heard of that. I'll have all of his details and how to get a hold of him at the end of this little story here. Basically, what this is all going to boil down to is what the rules are with your state, whether your company is going to cover workman's comp or not. Now, apparently there have been a lot of states making rules changes, so they either specify that they can or can't cover it or whatever. A lot of these changes, it just seems to depend on if you can prove whether you got it at work or whether you got it someplace else, and who has to prove that, you know? So for instance, some states are saying, well, you know, you as the driver have to prove that you got it at work to get workman's comp. But other states are saying the state has to prove that you didn't get it at work. It's a slight difference, but there is a difference. So long story short, each state has different rules, and you're just going to have to go to your state and find out, or ask your trucking company that you work for if it is available or not. I know with my company, we're going through that right now. We've had a couple of guys who have been, quarantined for 2 weeks, and they have not gotten any pay from it whatsoever. Now, I know another company who is the same union as we are. They are getting paid for it. But again, I think that is a company decision, not a union decision. Now, honestly, I think the union, this is just one of those things you don't think to really write a pandemic into your contract, do you? I mean, if they had foreseen this a long time ago, they could have written in anything like a natural catastrophe or, I don't know, that may actually be in the contract, but I'm pretty sure pandemic is not. If it had been, I bet you we'd be getting paid for this stuff without question. But as it is, right now, nobody thinks we're going to get paid for it, and nobody has gotten paid for it. They've been making us use sick days if we have those available, or even vacation days for some of the people. I don't know that they're actually mandating using vacation days, because I don't know if they can do that legally. But a lot of guys are just choosing to do that, just kind of like a forced vacation. At least they're getting paid instead of sitting at home getting paid nothing. So anyway, like I said, if you are affected by COVID-19 and have to miss some work, check with your company, check with your state to find out what they can do for you. So basically, this article didn't answer a whole lot, but it answered a lot at the same time. There is no good answer. Like he says in here, the answers to most law questions start with the 2 words, it depends. All right, I promised I would give you Brad Klepper's information, and here it is. If you'd like to reach him, his phone number is 800-333-3748. That's 800-333-3748. And the websites are interstatetrucker.com and driverslegalplan.com. Of course, there'll be a link in the show notes to all that information, including the article on overdriveonline.com. Let's drop the gavel on this one because the news is over. Winter is upon us, and winter leads to bad weather, and bad weather leads to sitting in your truck a lot at truck stops, waiting for the weather to pass. Well, if you had a new Volvo VNL series, you wouldn't care one bit, because this is the most comfortable sleeper berth in the entire universe. Assuming, of course, there are trucks on other planets. Yep, if you have yet to see the interiors of these Volvo VNLs, you need to go check out the videos. I've put links in the show notes to their YouTube page, or you can go to volvotrucks.us. So what's so great about these sleeper berths? Well, the most notable is definitely the reclining bunk. It's the first of its kind in any semi-truck, and it is super cool. Yes, you heard that right, a reclining bunk. Basically, you can position the mattress in an upright position so you can easily eat or sleep from a comfortable position. No more leaning your back against the wall or spending countless hours sitting in the driver's seat, which you already do while you're driving. Why would you want to do that? Besides, this mattress, wow. Just have a look at the video. It is super thick, super plush. It's a combination of foam and spring. I mean, this thing looks so comfortable. Even after the road's clear, you might not want to get out of bed. Also super nifty is the tray that folds out from the back wall. It just swivels up from the back wall and pops right into position, perfect for when you're using that reclining bunk. And of course, it's got all the whiz-bang items you need back there on the wall panel. You can set your temperature, control your lights, you can crank up the stereo, and if you forget to lock the doors, you can even do that from back in the bunk. And hey, when you finally crawl out of bed after a long winter's nap, you want to get some sunlight in there to wake up a little bit. Well, it's never been easier than in a Volvo VNL. That's because with these windows, you are not messing with Velcro or snaps or any stupid thing like that. You are dealing with airplane type windows. These shades simply slide up and slide down. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yes, I just said that. So hey, don't take my word for it. You really have to go check out these videos. Again, I've put links in the show notes to both the YouTube page and the Volvo Trucks website, which is volvotrucks.us. Check it out. And thanks to Volvo Trucks for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. All right, let's move on to the segment that I was told recently by a listener and fellow coworker Aaron. He said, my favorite segment is Trucker Grub. I'd never heard that before, but let's get after it.
Give us a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food, eat it.
All right, we got something a bit different for the Trucker Grub segment today. It's not exactly what I'm usually looking for, but hey, Greg T is a longtime listener, and because of that, and he's suffered through lots of my podcasts, I'm going to let this one go. And he's actually got a good point here. So take it away, Greg.
Hi, Todd, and greetings to all the rest of my fellow trucker dumpers. This is Greg. Yeah, Todd, I'm surprised you haven't started this a segment somewhat along this lines, as you're one of them cheap little buggers out there. How about cheap truckers, where we can shop at that we have truck parking?
Mm-hmm.
I know some of the Walmarts anyway have designated truck parking, like, Sydney, Nebraska, Lexington, Nebraska, El Reno, Oklahoma, and but some other ones that truckers might not know about is like over there in Baker City, Oregon. There's a nice dirt lot right next to, one of those, grocery outlet, that's what it was. And going across Montana and Livingston, Montana, there at the 333, there's a, the town pump. Right next to it is the Albertsons. I mean, an easy walk right over there. The property lines butt up side by side. And also over there in Mount Vernon, Illinois, they've got it's now a Huck's Flying J.
Mm-hmm.
And right next to it is a Walmart Supercenter. So
been there.
Maybe some truckers can go and share other places, so those of us that don't go out there and spend big bucks and eat out all the time and all that kind of crap, they can go and find decent places to go and shop while on the road and get your supplies while you're having someplace safe to park the truck at. Don't have to worry about getting booted or what the heck is that? Barnacle, that's it. The damn thingy they put on the windshield. The big old suction cup doohickey.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had that misfortune yet, but not looking forward to having it done.
No.
I think I might be able to avoid the barnacle thing. I think I've got a tool in there that'll go and remove that thing without damaging the truck, and I don't care about the barnacle, but I prefer not to go and find out. So anyway, all right, this is Greg. Just going and giving my thoughts on that. I don't know if it'll fly, but hey, what the heck. All right, later, take it easy.
Well, Greg, it flew. Wasn't exactly what we usually look for here in the Trucker Grub segment, but you do make a good point that there are a lot of cheap truckers out here like you and me. And, we don't often eat at a lot of restaurants, and it's kind of a good thing to think, hey, let's just keep my eye open for any place I can park near a grocery store. I don't know that the Walmart deli is known to be all that great, but there are some grocery stores out there who have excellent delis in them. So it's a good place to stop. We have one across from the hotel that we stay at in Nashville. It's a Kroger, and man, it's got a great big, huge, nice salad bar in there. It's got a sandwich bar. It's even got sushi in there, a little sushi bar in there, which is pretty amazing. Plus a little Starbucks if you're interested in that. Who loves their foo-foo coffee? I do. So yeah, let's just keep that in mind, that you don't always have to find a good restaurant. Sometimes you can just find something a little out of the ordinary. There was a period of time before I had an electric freezer. It was actually a refrigerator / freezer. And, a lot of drivers still don't have that, or if they do, they have just a little bitty section of freezer in their refrigerator. Well, before I had that, I just had like those thermo coolers, so I couldn't really keep anything super, super cold. So I was limited to, things I could heat up real quick, or, soups or something like that, heat it up in my microwave. But it was really nice under those circumstances to be able to pull into a Walmart or a grocery store, Kroger, Albertsons, whatever you can find, Meijer, any place that'll allow truck parking, because then you can just go in and say you could just get like a Marie Callender's chicken pot pie, which is a nice change of pace, but it's a frozen dinner. You can't keep that in a thermo cooler for very long. It'll be a melted mess of cardboard and goo, and you don't want that. So, just like I said, just keep in mind you can get stuff at these grocery stores that you can't get, normally. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you very much for submitting it, Greg. The sound quality was great. On a side note, I would like to add that Greg said he used an app on his Android phone called Easy Voice Recorder. It looks like it's free to install. They do have ads in there. It says it offers in-app purchases, so it's probably a small fee to get rid of the ads if you want to. Most of the times those ads are not that intrusive on an app that you don't use very often. Now, hopefully you'll use it more often because it's easy to use, and you can send me an audio comment at truckerdump@gmail.com, or you could submit your own Trucker Grub segment of your favorite restaurant that you like to go to that has access to truck parking. I'd also like to add that there is a app called Voice Memos on your iPhone if you're an iPhone user, and you can just use that. Again, email address truckerdump@gmail.com. So again, Greg, thanks for your submission. If you're listening right now and you've got your own, send it in. Well, as you heard in the intro of the show, there is no main topic in the podcast today. That's because it is a video review of the Garmin dēzl OTR1000 truck GPS. Garmin was kind enough to reach out and offer to send me a review unit. I'll be sending that back shortly, but it was very kind of them to send it to me. Now, when you go check this out, be gentle. I'm not good at video. I haven't had a lot of practice at it. I think I could get better at it if I had time, but man, oh man, is video a lot of work. Woo! Wow. Yeah, probably ain't gonna happen. I can barely kick out a podcast a month. So anyway, the best way to find this video is to just click on the link in the show notes. Yes, for once, you might get some actual use out of the show notes. You know, those things I say about 1,000,000 times, show notes in the episode, and nobody ever goes and clicks on. Well, there'll be a link in the show notes to the video. That'll be the easiest way. But hey, if you're not going to do that, just head on over to abouttruckdriving.com, search for TD151, and you'll find the video right there. But hey, if you do follow the link I provide and you go to YouTube and watch the video, please like the video and leave a comment. Hopefully it'll be nice, but I'll take any constructive criticism you've got for me. Or, as always, you can just send it directly to me at truckerdump@gmail.com. And let me know what you think of the video, and let me know if you'd like to see more reviews of cool stuff like this. And thank you in advance to anyone who goes and watches the video. Much appreciated. Oh heck, I almost forgot to mention something. Seriously, forgot to mention it. My head's so out of the game right now, I'm so freaking tired. I should be in bed, not doing a podcast. Anyway, I need to mention the Amazon affiliate link. You'll see them on the blog post, you'll see it in the show notes, and you'll see it on the YouTube page. And of course, as we've spoken about before, the Amazon affiliate link will actually give me a bit of a kickback if you decide to buy this device or any other device like the smaller dēzl units or even paper towels or whatever you want to buy while you're in that session, you know, in the next 24 hours after you click on that link. Anything that you buy on Amazon, I'll get a small cut of. Again, that doesn't cost you anything extra. I just needed to report that to you. It's a disclaimer thing. I don't expect to make a lot of money off this, but hey, if you plan on buying this device or anything else expensive, please use this link. I would appreciate it. All right, enough about that. Let's move on.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
All right, I can tell you I'm not a big fan of the sound in this room, but hey, this podcast is extremely late as it is, and I'm just going to have to deal with it and hope the audio software can fix it. It sounds big and boomy, and I don't like it one bit. All right, let's get on with the listener feedback. Hey, you remember in the last episode, we've been hearing from Stevie a lot lately, and I mentioned a unique job she had. Well, she was listening to Trucker Dump 53, Lunar Driving as a Trucker, and, link in the show notes to that, obviously, if you haven't heard that one. And she writes, Hey, Todd. Personally, I would be, or was, for the most part, a lunar driver. Most of our driving was at night, as most carny loads are. What? Carny loads? Okay, wait, just a second here. Okay, so apparently I found out that Stevie works for a carnival. Yep, that's true. And I was like, so this job doesn't require logs, huh? Because remember in the last episode, she was saying she hated e-logs and she thought it was Big Brother. So she writes back, Hi, Todd, and good morning to you. At least it is here in Arizona. Love the blog and the podcast, my newfound favorite. In reply to your discovery of my being a carnival driver, you now know my secret. I am actually retired from that currently and have been for quite a while. But yes, at that point in time, we used paper logbooks, as we often called them, the great lie books. The show did not care how the ride, that's what they called the load, got to the next spot as long as it got there. And if you were unlucky enough to get busted at the scales, well, that was on you, the driver. The show would lay claim to not even knowing of your existence. Well, that's par for the course. So, needless to say, we took many trips and hours out of our way just to avoid the scales. This was also why we ran mostly at night, which answers another of your podcast questions. We are all mostly lunar drivers, and I am a night owl personally by nature anyway. I way prefer the nights as opposed to actually being up driving during the day. Well, Stevie, as I've mentioned on this podcast many times, the evil overlord was a lunar driver. Also, she's still very nocturnal, but when we drove a truck, her ideal day was to be starting right after dark and finishing just before the sun came up. I'm not sure, but she might be a bit of a vampire. And you are right about driving at night. That is one thing I have noticed as an LTL driver, is that is one big perk of it is, well, of course there's less traffic, but also the scales are often closed, and that's awesome, especially when you drive crappy old equipment like I have. Anyway, Stevie goes on and says, currently my recent boyfriend is a long-haul truck driver and owner-operator. I have not had the chance to travel with him as of yet. I work a normal job these days while he drives. I sadly miss my days out there driving. I love road life and miss it tremendously. Yeah, it kind of gets in your blood, doesn't it, Stevie? And she finishes up, anyway, just thought I'd respond back to you. I'm also having great fun and commenting on most episodes. Well, so am I, Stevie. Keep it up. She says, here's to you, many, many more. You rock. Oh, give my best to the evil overlord. Most of us females out there who are with our truck driving man have to be evil. Ha ha ha, she says. Catch you on the flip side, Stevie. And I've got another one from Stevie that will sum up her thoughts on e-logs. She was listening to Trucker Dump 55, the EOBR myth. A link in the show notes to that one, obviously, if you haven't heard it. She writes, hey Todd, another interesting opinion show. Personally, I am still not a fan of e-logs. Just too used to the old school of keeping multiple logbooks to suit my purpose at the time. E-logs would simply make it impossible to make the deadline of getting rides to the next stop on time for setup. During fair season, it's a major serious fine for each ride that does not make it open on time. And when a fair or festival can be as far as 800 to 1,100 miles away, we leave Sunday night, Monday morning before the sun comes up. And oh, by the way, we open at Tuesday at noon. You see the problem. As far as a little black box recorder, I suppose that wouldn't be so bad. I guess I'm just paranoid of all of this Big Brother watching sort of stuff. Anyway, stay safe out there, my friend, until next time. And of course, there will be a next time because we got a lot from Stevie. Thanks again, Stevie. Keep it up. All right, to round out the listener feedback segment, we are going to hear from longtime listener, Driver Dave. And even better than listening to my dumb voice, we get to hear from Dave himself. Now, this one is a bit longer than normal. I usually like about 3 minutes. I got 7 minutes here. But you know what? Beggars can't be choosers. I got an audio comment. I'm playing it. I enjoyed listening to it. So we'll go from there. And I also might mention that if you remember at the beginning of this episode when I was introducing everything that was going on, I actually introduced Driver Dave as musical guest Driver Dave. Wonder why I would do that. You know, I can honestly say when I started this podcast that it never dawned on me in a million years that I would have someone playing fiddle on my podcast. Well, thank you, Driver Dave. You took care of that bucket list item. Wait, that wasn't on my bucket list, but hey, I enjoyed it anyway. All right, what do you got to say, Driver Dave? Take it away.
Well, hello, Todd, with 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's, and hello, all trucker dumpers. Driver Dave here. So I was listening to that podcast about CDL schools, and did that driver say, I think he did, he said that he was picking up or delivering, I forget which, in a cave?
Yes, he did.
a cave, like a hole in the ground? I've been doing this for 40 years in March. Excuse me, and I ain't never picked up or delivered in no cave ever.
Well, Driver Dave, I can tell you it is a real thing. Yes, this is something, we have a few of these in Missouri, actually. I don't know why. They particularly in Missouri, is the only ones I know of. There probably are more around the United States, but there's one in Carthage, Missouri. There's one in Springfield, Missouri, and there's one in Kansas City, Missouri that I am aware of. Like I said, probably way more than that. And yes, it is a hole in the ground. Well, it's not like he's dropping off into a hole, but there's a big cave entrance and they have big pillars in there, and it is very tight in there. Just enough height clearance, just enough width clearance to make the wide turns, just enough backing space in there, and there is warehousing underground, and it is temperature controlled, of course, because it's underground. I think they say the underground stays about 55 degrees, so they don't have to, heat it very much to keep it at a decent temperature. So anyway, yes, he actually said driving in caves. If you have never experienced this before, it's freaky. Look it up online. I'll put a link in the show notes if I can find one to a YouTube video on this. I was actually thinking that I had taken a video of this myself years ago, but I cannot find it for the life of me. I wish I had. And quite frankly, now that I'm LTL, I'm kicking myself in the butt that I never got video of that. I don't know why I didn't. Like I said, I thought I did, but I guess it's gone. So anyway, I will put a link in the show notes to someone else's video if I can find one. Please continue on, Dave.
That reminds me of you remember the one where the wolf was chasing Bugsy into the cave, and Bugs comes out with a flashlight and a foghorn, and then the wolf ends up catching a train, I think, yeah. And then, of course, maybe it's Wile E. Coyote. I think he had a cave at one time, or bought one, or leased one, or something like that. Anyway,
I have no words.
So I just had to do that there, Todd.
Of course you did.
CDL schools. My career of driving started off loading trucks at this one place, and it was kind of a food place. You couldn't smoke in there. We'd go outside and have a smoke. And one day the lead hand says, "Here, jump in that truck there," and he let me get in behind the driver's wheel, steering wheel, and I got in there. It was an old Brigadier.
A what? Gonna have to look that one up.
I don't know, mid-70s vintage. So I got in there and I thought, wow, look at this thing, It's got mirrors, and it's got a big steering wheel, and it's got a funny gear shift with all kinds of funny knobs on it. I wonder what they are. And all these gauges, cool, and it's got a horn. I thought, man, I can really do this. Yeah, that was... that would have been 1978, I think. Something like that. Then at the same place, I convinced, and I had a G license at the time.
A what? Must be a Canada thing.
That's all I had. And I convinced a couple of the drivers to take me out on the road. And basically, now you're not going to tell anybody this, right?
No, never.
I hope the statute of limitations is gone. So we went out on what is really the Trans-Canada Highway in Ontario in Canada. Going into Toronto. Back then the 401 was just a skinny road, really, just 2 lanes each. Well, not a skinny road, but 2 lanes each way. And at night, there was nothing but trucks. There was really no cars. But here I was out here driving this thing, and the driver was riding shotgun. He says, "You just put your foot down and do what I tell you. Steer it, and I'll work the gear shift."
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, you should have seen the boss's face when I got home there.
I'll bet.
And word got back to him. Holy cow. Yeah. So my training, if you want to call it training, my training consisted of going to my neighbor, and he had a single axle, I think it was a Ford gas job with a filthy wheel and a single axle. I believe it was a single axle float for moving his backhoe around. And he took me out just basically on the street. Actually, I'm living on now, and we were backing around corners and this and that. And didn't seem too hard. And he let me use his his truck to go to the ministry to write my, at that time was an A license. And I remember I went in and the ministry officer says, what's a GVWR of that unit? And I said, huh? What's that? He shook his head. Anyway, they just took me out on the road. Got stuck in the ice leaving the parking lot, but I got the thing out on the road. Didn't hit anybody, and they give me my license. That's a long time ago now. As far as, so I come in the back door. I didn't have any real formal training. Went with my brother-in-law a little bit, running back and forth to Toronto. A little bit of driving, backing around yards and stuff like that, hooking up, unhooking. That was basically it. Got a job driving a straight truck, did that for a couple of years. Somewhere in there I did that, and then the A sort of took precedence and I started driving big truck. And then along come the whole air brake thing, and they just grandfathered in with, the Z endorsement, the air brake. And, but yeah, I didn't have any training at all to speak of, not like what you guys had. And certainly not what that other driver had with was it 2 weeks or 3 weeks training, whatever. Wow. Anyway, just thought I'd say hi. I enjoy the podcast, and I enjoyed that one about the CDL school.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So, I mean, if I had to go back to school, to one of those schools, I'd probably learn some things, and sure, it's taken me a long time to learn, the hard way, learn some tricks out here on the road. Probably got some bad habits too. Sure.
Don't we all?
But anyway, that's my story. You have a good one there. Talk at you again. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for sending an audio comment, Driver Dave. I appreciate it. I had a question on that. Remember when I was like, he said Brigadier, and I was like, well, what? Well, I didn't know what this was. Apparently it's an old GMC semi. Didn't know that's what they were called. And he mentioned a G license, and that is just a normal driver's license. Guess what? I could have inferred that from what he said, but I'm not that brilliant. So I went and looked it up. So G license in Canada is just your basic driver's license. Well, like I said, I love getting audio comments, and, of course, Driver Dave was going to throw in something about Wile E. Coyote, Bugs Bunny. I don't know. He's got a Looney Tunes fetish, I think. You might want to see somebody about that, Driver Dave. Seriously, though, thank you for your comment. If you would like to send an audio comment or a regular old email, send it to truckerdump@gmail.com. It can be about anything you want, old episodes, something you'd like to see on the podcast in the future, comments, suggestions, constructive criticism, whatever. Send it to truckerdump@gmail.com. And again, thank you to Stevie and Driver Dave for your input. Always appreciate it. Okay, to finish up the show, I'm going to do something that I don't know if it's a tradition or not. I think I've done this before, but I'm not really sure, honestly. But it's going to be a Christmas tradition from now on. And that is the annual reading of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, Trucker Style.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the truck, the only thing stirring was a case of bad luck. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care. Thanks to my job, I wasn't there. The nephews were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of Modern Warfare 3 danced in their heads. But the evil overlord at home and her teddy, hey, it's my poem, and I on the road, we had both settled down to take off a load. When outside my truck there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bunk to see what was the matter. I reached for my clothes, knowing I was certain. Prepared for the worst, I opened the curtain. The moon in the sky gave off such a great glow, it made the parking lot look like it was covered with snow. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a flatbed loaded with big green John Deeres. With the driver outside looking at my truck, I knew right away I had more bad luck. As I jumped outside to check out my bumper, something flew over my head and then took a big dumper. My luck continued as I took it in the eye. It was such a huge load, it almost made me cry. As I looked to the sky, I swore I heard a jingle. I took cover and prayed it didn't need to tinkle. Alas, I did not see what dumped on my head, but I thought I glimpsed something that might have been red. I thought, could that have been good old St. Nick? Nah, couldn't be. My eyes had just played a trick. So back to my problem, the wreck, not the poop. I called my Nazi safety department to give them the scoop. We exchanged information, and he went on his way. I guess he was too embarrassed to back in and stay. Next thing you know, I was getting a call. The evil overlord sounded like she was about to bawl. It seems that some fat guy had squeezed down through our roof. He didn't seem too happy that it burned his caboose. He was all dressed in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all covered with ashes and soot. She said, "Why would a man be wearing so much fur? I bet he's one of those drag queens. Do I call him sir? His eyes, how they twinkle. His dimples, how merry. This dude must be wasted. I'm guessing it's cooking sherry." His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the sherry had stained his beard like a dead deer in the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and she said, "Holy cow, I think that's weed." He had a broad face and a big old gut. Every bit of him was fat, yes, even his butt. He was chunky and plump, a right jolly old guy. She said, "I'd be jolly too if I was that high." A wink of his eye and a shake of his head. "Are you kidding me, perv? Not even if I were dead." He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings with Doritos and beef jerk. And laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, and they lurched into flight. As she leveled the shotgun, she had him in sight. As he started to exclaim, she squeezed off a shot. "That'll teach you to let your reindeer poop in my husband's eye." The end. Merry Christmas.
So, did you pause the podcast earlier and go check out the video review of the Garmin GPS? If not, head on over to abouttruckdriving.com and search for TD151. And of course, if you plan on buying, don't forget to click that Amazon affiliate link. You can also check out all my other videos, few as they may be, at youtube.com/abouttruckdriving. And hey, what the heck? A quick reminder that the half-price ebook combo pack is only good until the end of January, so you better get on that if you want to save $10. Well, enough of the infomercial. As always, I appreciate you listening, and I hope you have a jolly Christmas. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. Well, I know how much you'd like to hear me talk about my boring life and how... What was that? Something made a noise on my computer. And it could cause the truck to move expectantly. What am I saying? Not expectedly, unexpectedly. This one affects over 8,000 Freightliner and Western This one affects over 8,000 Freightliner. This one affects What is an effect? Doesn't make any dang sense to me, but then again, this drug thing really doesn't make... God, I am just a cluster today. So here's some good news, which is something we'll... So here's some good news. A collision was avoided only because basically a driver was... Ugh, God, what is wrong with me today? Both recommending that we get them first. Let's go back and start that over again because it sucked. And none of the incidents were severe enough to be likely to cause any critical and none of these events were severe enough to be And none of these events were severe enough to likely cause any critical energies. And none of these events were severe enough to be. And none of these events were of likely to. And none of these events. And none of these events were severe enough to be likely to cause. And none of these events were likely to actually would have. Son of a.